wanted you to just come back with me to a faraway place long ago. Imagine in your mind's eye for a few minutes a gentle autumn morning in October in 1951 in the then rolling farmland around Langhorne, Pennsylvania. Then imagine that it's the day of the first 100-mile National Sportsman Championship, most likely what would turn out to be racing's biggest Woodstock ever. Spectators by the thousands milled around a treacherous, somewhat seedy mile-round dirt oval. There were more cars that showed up than anyone could imagine. From California, from Florida, from Iowa, from Maine. Teams towed all week to get there, not with ostentatious party trailers with VCRs and showers. Nope, they flat-towed. And when they got there, they slept under their pickup trucks so they wouldn't get run over. This was a carnival atmosphere. It was the poor man's Indy. It was history in the making. And when the race started, the action was beyond the beyond. Those little coupes and coaches could really build up a head of steam on that mile track, and 100 of them took the green flag. I suppose it was almost inevitable that after 80 laps the race was stopped for what might still be the most spectacular and terrifying multi-car wreck and fire ever. The accident, which was caught on film, is terrifying to watch because unsuspecting drivers just kept piling into the inferno. There weren't any caution lights. The eventual winner, a Connecticut Yankee who started deep in the pack and came up the popcorn groove, playing tag with the fence all the way, had incredibly been driving for only 2 years. He's our next inductee, Hully Bunn. It would be really easy to pass off that victory as luck. Not so. A couple of weeks before, out at Bainbridge Speedway, a mile-long track in Ohio, Hully had beat NASCAR's best. And almost to bracket the Langhorne victory, he went back there for the next race at Langhorne in the spring, bolted on an extra Stromberg, and won the modified race in that same sportsman car. Who was that dude? Born in 1920, World War II had a major impact on the young Mr. Bunn. A distinguished tour, including some really gritty duty at the Battle of the Bulge with Patton, was not soothing. In Hully's words, when I came back, I was a mess. And something that intense needs to be replaced by something that intense. For us, it's a darn good thing it was stock cars. Piecing his life back together with a marriage and a little Plymouth coupe, Hully worked the asphalt at Plainville, Rhinebeck, Menands, Manchester Motordrome, and Candlelight Stadium for a year or so. Winning frequently, he soon teamed with Dick Egan and drove Johnny Mildick's number X Ford Flathead and also cars for Johnny Ross. Winters were for racing in Florida. Summer weekends involved zany schedules, such as Georgetown, Delaware on Saturday night and Brattleboro, Vermont on Sunday afternoon. And remember, flat towing, flathead pickup trucks, and no throughways. The wins just seemed to come, though, and Hully received the real honor of driving several years in the mid-50s for Steve Danish, often called the father of dirt track racing in the Northeast. Their plunder included the very first race ever run at Lebanon Valley. After Danish, Bunn drove for the likes of Ronnie Coleman on all manner of tracks, both dirt and asphalt. All the while, Hully's attitude about competition was strikingly simplistic. I loved to race, I loved pitching those cars into the turns, and I always smiled when the guys complained about their rides. Most of the time, they simply weren't driving hard enough. After 16 seasons, Hully career sunsetted in 1965 at a 100-lap Sunday night open at Lebanon Valley. A following car with a stuck throttle crashed him big time in turn one, and the result was complete devastation. At that point, Hully had daughter Holly, son Ronnie, and a new machine shop financed by a home remortgage. He was fielding his own piece at the time, and he knew it was time to quit. He left the cockpit with an incredible record of achievement in what many consider to be the golden era of American stock car racing. The fact is, though, that Hully did race one more time at an old-timers race at Cairo Speedway, promoted in 1975 by Kenny Shoemaker. He literally dusted off the field, which included several current dirt and near Hall of Famers. I say this with some personal knowledge and, in fact, pleasure, since that day Hully drove a big block sedan owned by Bruce Cohen, Dick Berggren, and me. Today, Hully's here with wife Dorothy and Holly and Ronnie. Actually, we're really lucky to have Hully and Ronnie here because they're so busy putting together their NEMA midget for next year. But before we ask them to come up here, come back with me one more time to Langhorne that afternoon in 1951. Believe me, this was no cakewalk. Hully, Egan, and Melnick had stayed up all night the night before the race trying desperately to unfreeze Egan's motor, which had frozen up following a poor rebuild. They were never able to get it started. Hully, who'd refused to take the pan off his own motor even though it was loose as a goose, went into the racing fray completely sleepless. And to make sure that he also wouldn't be oilless at the end of the race, before he went out, he strapped a can of oil to the dashboard with a spigot and ran a hose down into the motor. More wit than wallet, these boys. Both the pail and the crankcase were pretty much empty in Victory Lane. So what do you think? Was this guy tough or what? Ladies and gentlemen, may I present the jewel in the crown of New England racing, Mr. Hully Bunn.
Well, I can't tell you much. I got hooked on these things in about 1932 when I was a kid on big cars. And although I have driven, I drove stock cars. My first love, I guess, is midgets, which we still have, are putting one together today. So for my son Ronnie over there. And I did have a chance when the midgets were running to run one of the best midgets in New England. However, I told the owner that the bottom part fit, but the top half stuck out. And I wasn't going to get my fanny busted. And I'm going to leave you with this, that if racing is your first love, you don't have to worry about AIDS.